here.
There you are, buddy.
There you are. Good morning, May 7th, 2018. Welcome aboard on the freight train that is the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast.
Here we go. Ready for takeoff.
Ready for
departure? What do they call that? When they're ready to shove off.
Ready to. I think that's a boat.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to choo-choo. How's that? Ready to. I think that's all aboard. There you go.
Roll on. We're gonna roll on down the line.
Yeah, I think that's more that's more like it. Christ. So apologies to anyone, any railroad conductors out there that we just butchered the send off. I think departure's you probably nailed it with that one.
Buckle in. All right, yeah, buckle in.
Buckle in. Yeah, that's right. All aboard. Buckle up. So it's good to have you on. We are back and better than ever. This nice and shiny Monday morning. The season is in full swing. People racing all the time, everywhere. Everyone getting excited, at least in our closed group. Which, if you're just now listening or just now kind of catching up or feeling the need, please search us on Facebook. You can search Crushing Iron Group and join the part of the conversation with your fellow podcast listeners. It's a great group of people racing all over, great opportunity to connect with other athletes that are like-minded and also connect with other people that might be at races, so you're not doing anything solo. Wow. And which is always a good thing. But yeah, everybody's ramped and ready to go. A lot of chatter on Chattanooga here in 2 weeks. I know both you and I are doing it, and man,
looks like the pro field's pretty stacked too.
Pro field is pretty good. It's gonna be interesting to see. I found it really interesting that as we peeked at the pro fields yesterday. I think you probably looked at it when Peter posted it.
I did,
but. What I noticed, I thought was really intriguing, was that a lot of those are doing like a very short, like kind of back-to-back races. So you saw, at least on the men's side, I see a lot of athletes who just did the full at Ironman Texas.
I know. I saw Starkey and Hansen. I was like, Hansen, is that the same Hansen?
There's three. Just off the top of my head that I saw real quick. And there's probably more. And then on the women's side, there's a ton that just did St. George this last Saturday, which 2 weeks for a 70.3 is really nothing for professionals. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting and exciting all at the same time. I know it's as one of our athletes, Peter, said on our kind of Chattanooga 70.3 thread, as a lot of athletes haven't raced or done an event with pros there, and it's a totally different feel, and I think that's also why the 70.3 tends to have a little more attendance from a spectator standpoint, or people kind of get a little more excited, is because the field is so big, but it's shorter. People are always hanging around down waterfront instead of kind of meandering about the city of Chattanooga because everybody is so spread out. But the pro field is both men and women, and it's usually pretty solid. They usually have pretty good prize money, whereas the full either has just one, either the men's or women's, or it's, given the time of year, it's, I think, 2 weeks before Kona, so you never have anybody who's participating in the World Championships there. So the field is usually much weaker and with a little bit, or quite a bit less, hoopla surrounding the athletes. But yeah, it's going to be a fun event, man. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting everybody, and it's going to be fun. I know you were out this weekend testing your mettle in Iron War preface with CC.
Well, yeah, before I get in, I just want to say one more thing about the spectating 70.3, because I just did it down in Houston, or Galveston.
Yeah.
And as I was videotaping it, which I still owe you guys a video from that race, and it's coming. Trust me, I'm trying to do something a little different with it in sort of a mini documentary type of a form. But what I noticed about that race, as far as spectating, is that it really fits our current society's HDD or ADD problem. It's like, because
High definition ADD coming to you.
High definition HDADA. But it's like, I watched the swim was kind of wave start, and then I kind of saw some people we knew take off on the swim, and by the time I got to the swim exit, the pros were already gone. And then I kind of went down and watched people get out of the water and get on their bikes and did all that sort of thing. And then as I'm like sort of watching the last cyclist leave transition, Starkowitz was already in off the bike.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's just like a weird thing because you can't even really in Ironman people get on the bike, it's kind of for brunch, and then you go lay in the hotel and sort of wait around and everything. But at a 70.3, you can't really sleep with these pros there because they're less than 2 hour, 2 hour bike.
They're right at 2 hours, if not a little bit less. Over under by 5 minutes.
Swim.
Yeah.
And so it just really happens quickly. By the time they're running around and they're halfway through the run before your friends start getting off the bike, and it's like nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I was out this weekend. We went to the Trace. CC and I, Corey Coggins. He's the guy that I set up last year with the Crushing Iron War and pitted him against me, and he just dusted me. And now he took me out this, and we went at it pretty good. 60 miler, 58 miles or something on the Trace, and the hay is in El Barno.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Calling it a day.
I'm calling it a day, dude. The way I feel today, the hay is in the barn.
Hay's in the barn, and you have peaked. It's time to refresh and recover and sharpen the old sword, as they say.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna keep. I was thinking about I put in like 3 out of 4 pretty hard cycling days, and it really was like, all right, now you need to just sort of start focusing on feeling good when that race comes around, and not being tired and getting good sleep and eating well and not thrashing your legs too much anymore. Just sort of tune them up. That's my thought. I mean, it's less than 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, 2 weeks out. I mean, I've got most of my athletes doing a little bit of unloading this week. I mean, still, most of them are still going to be between 8 and 11 hours, depending on kind of where they are.
Yeah.
Which it might seem like a lot to some people, but 8 to 11 hours, and they've been doing, routinely 12 to 14, isn't. I mean, it's also unloading in terms of intensity. You don't want to. People just tend to get real lazy. We've covered this before in many a podcast, obviously, but people tend to, when they put the hay in the barn, they literally lock it up, turn off the lights, and then pretend to not look at it until race day. When what you should be doing is leaving the door open, the lights on, cleaning things up, making sure things are fresh, making sure things are in order, still doing a little work, checking everything you need to, and just slowly unload. And so it's going to feel like a lot of unloading, though. Intensity is going to be down, duration is going to be down, and then obviously the race week it'll be even more unloading. So I know a lot of them. I was just actually catching up over the weekend's comments, and that was kind of the theme. Was they looking forward to recovering. And as most of them have been, which is good, but you just got to always make sure people understand, like, recovering doesn't mean being lazy, and you got to stay sharp. And so it's good that they're there. They put in a lot of, and it's kind of like a ceremonial, thing when you've been training for so long, as a lot of these athletes have and haven't raced, and they've been working hard since, some of them like October, November. It's like, man, they can kind of like a sigh of relief. It's over.
Yeah.
When it's not over, but to them, it's like the big, daunting, weeks and weeks and weeks that they mount up, and you're always doing everything under fatigue. And it's just, it makes it, while you have really great workouts, it's still hard to like see a lot of the gains because your body is so fatigued because you're putting in so much volume. But now it's time to shed it, and they'll start to feel a little more spry with a little more pep in their step probably come Wednesday, Thursday, which is good. I'm kind of on a different little trajectory. As I raced early April and then recovered a little bit. Then we had 2 weeks at camps, and I hit Disney. And man, I tell you what, man, we got back from Disney late Tuesday night last week, and dude, up until yesterday around 8 a.m., I was straight struggling.
Really?
Oh, dude, my Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday workouts were just torture. My legs felt heavy. I felt terrible. Hayden was sick. Wasn't in daycare. It's just a lot of stuff. It's just, getting home. And I think, honestly, to be frank, like, I think I totally underestimated the amount of energy and stress that goes on your body when you actually do something like Disney and travel like that. And you're basically running around 24/7, chasing around and doing things for 12 hours of the day. And I got back and I had a swim on Wednesday. My legs felt okay. My swim was good. Thursday, Friday had runs. Or no, Thursday was, I think, the day I told you I was going to the lab. So I head out to the lab I got my bike, picked up my bike, got a new, changed things. My bike fit us a little bit. My bike position is a little bit lower, so I was super pumped to get out there and test it out and see how I was feeling. Made an adjustment to the front end, made an adjustment to my saddle height and my saddle fore and aft. I get out there and I do 15 minutes, and my wife calls and said the doctor wants Hayden to come in because since we got back from Disney, he's been struggling with a real bad viral infection. So he's had a stomach virus, and so he's just been not holding anything down, and he hadn't peed in a while, so they were worried he was dehydrated, so they wanted to come in. So I get home. The minute I walk in the door, he pees through his diaper. And I mean, honestly, I was like, this is my life right now. But it was like, hey, it was good. It was all good. I was happy that he was fine, and so I ended up throwing my bike on the trainer and finishing out my session, and then ran. But it was, good God, it was hard. My legs felt like rocks. Everything was achy. Ran hard Friday. Went to the just kind of like a comedy of errors for 4 days, and with my legs feeling like garbage. And then Sunday morning I woke up. I know you and CC were going to ride at 10:30, and I wanted to get things done. I still have some project backyard is still underway, and it was supposed to be really nice yesterday. So I got up early, hit the lab, and after about the first hour, man, my legs were just like, I don't really know what you're trying to do today, but I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not going to work. And I was just getting really frustrated. And when if you're just joining us on the podcast, or first time listener, we have this place called the Lab, and it's 1.25 miles around circle. And if you don't have your head in the game, doing anything out there for over an hour and a half really can seem like an eternity. Mm-hmm. Basically, imagine parking your car in a huge parking lot and then doing your ride there, where you have the opportunity to basically stop and get on it at any point. And I knew I had a while before I started my intervals, and so I actually put on a podcast. And while it helped kind of the time go, it took me away from what I was really focusing on, which was working hard. Mm-hmm. So I pulled over about an hour and 5, rehydrated, got back on the bike, did 2 laps. I was supposed to wait at least another 30, 45 minutes to ride hard, and I just said, F it. If I'm going to go, I better go now, because this just ain't working. And I threw down the throttle and throttled up a little bit and throttled up a little bit. And after about 45 minutes, I was thinking, man, my legs just came alive. I don't know if it was an attitude shift or it was my legs finally waking up and showing some promise. Or kind of getting themselves back into gear and remembering what they were supposed to be doing pre-Disney. But I had probably the best hour and 40 minutes, strongest hour and 40 minutes that I've had probably in any ride ever.
Wow, ever?
Ever. I mean, ever. I mean, I knew that when I was doing it, but when I got off and looked at my numbers, I confirmed it. It was easily the strongest last hour and 40 minutes that I'd ever ridden.
Wow.
And so that gave me a lot of confidence, because I was, again, I'll tell you, I was just kind of not losing it, but just kind of questioning it, because as so much with training and with racing, you'd be such a prisoner of the moment. You're going pro or you need to quit. And my new position felt good. So finally, outside of the fact that I feel like I rode good the last hour and 40. The biggest thing I took away from it was just, you know, is to stay patient. And because I tell my athletes this all the time, and it's hard to tell myself this, is that this is they'll comment, this is the worst workout that I can remember. And I usually always comment, well, that means one of your best workouts is coming. And it almost always happens. And, I didn't really give myself that preface and tell myself that story. I just said, you know what? I've just effing had it with feeling like shit. I'm just gonna, if I'm gonna feel it, I want to like forcefully, like totally blow up. Like I'm not gonna just dip my toe in the water of implosion. I'm gonna just like get on the high dive and do a cannonball. And if I make it, I make it. And if I don't, I don't. But I'm at least gonna see what happens. And I think it was both a mental and physical choice that I made, and I put in some tunes, and I like writing out there with some music and kind of got in the groove. And after that, it was just, F it. Let's just go for longer. Let's go for longer. Let's keep pushing it. And it ended up being good, but it was just good. It was good. Glad to be back in the, not speaking, glad to be back in the saddle again.
Yeah,
Good.
When you said that, we kind of texted a little bit about that yesterday, and you said you got pissed off, and I wasn't sure what, but now I know what. And I, have these thoughts about, you try and wake up your legs, and I have this thought about, getting mad, sometimes. And I think we talk about emotions and how they can conflict and things like that, but people get, frustrated a lot, and I think they confuse that with getting mad. And it sounds like you just got, kind of ornery with the situation and just pushed through it, and your body actually was calling for that in a weird way. It's like you've seen me ride when I'm just like frustrated and pissed off.
Oh yeah.
And then you just get up and just like push your body out of that zone. You're not feeling it while you're riding. You're kind of like stuck in a plateau or something, and it doesn't feel good, and then you push yourself out of that for a little while, and it kind of wakes your legs up. And it sounds like that's what happened. It's like that's where your body wanted to go, and you were trying to hold back, or not hold back, but you know what I mean? You're just trying to.
No, I totally.
It's like
totally
a force feed or something.
Yeah, well, it's
Injection.
it's a really great point. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's funny because like the podcast I was listening to was talking about nutrition and stuff. But anyway, the context of what I think of what I'm kind of relating it to with you is that like they said that perfect moderation is infinitely harder than total abstinence.
Wow, yeah, I like that.
Which I love. And obviously, I mean, being in recovery, it is. You have to be totally abstinent. There is no perfect moderation, which is the same thing as a lot of people find when they try to diet. Like, it's just impossible. But along the same lines of what you're talking about, sometimes and while powering through isn't abstinence, you're going all in. You're not flirting with that, like, even line. And where I think sometimes when you go out for these rides and especially on rides, I wouldn't definitely recommend it on runs, but even a lot of times I'll have athletes comment that like they started feeling like crap. And then once they started to pick it up, they were like, oh, their legs finally woke up. And I think with your body sometimes, as long as you do it safely, like it's not going to respond if you start flirting with it. It's going to be like, oh, you want me to just like pick it up a little bit? Well, no, I'm perfectly fine just where I am. Because it doesn't really have to respond. But if you throw something at it to where it has to make a decision to really, really respond, if you feel like it's like, been lazy or your legs are tired, or it's like, I think sometimes that if you do it, and honestly, I can't tell you there's any like scientific proof about this, just going through my own experience and my experience with athletes, is that and I was on that ride with you last year, I remember, where you just like the first 2 miles out of the parking lot, I feel like you were turning around. Yeah. And then finally you were just like, you just went at it. And I think it's just interesting how the body works and how it responds. And I think it's just such a great lesson in racing as well, in that, like sometimes in order to get your body to get its shit together and get in gear, you have to force it to make a decision, to actually rise to the level of which your mind is trying to force it to get to, or truly tell you that I just can't do it anymore. And I think you can't just hover along that line of trying to do it. You have to literally have at it. And I know I've seen it in training before today, and then obviously yesterday, and you have as well, that it's instead of, perfectly moderating a rise, you just have to say, okay, these 200 watts feel good. I know I'm trying to keep it at 200 and it feels like a chore. Instead of just kind of flirting with making a change, I'm going all in. And you just start to hammer it. And then hammer it a little bit more. And then hammer it a little more. And I could see my body just slowly waking up and taking it to another level, as it did the whole ride. I didn't just try to crush it. I started at what I felt I was doing a long hour zone 3 effort, and I was like, I'm gonna throw around 230, and I'm gonna hit it. And then if after a couple laps, 15-20 minutes, if I feel good still, I'm gonna try and creep up a little bit, and I'm gonna try and creep up a little bit, and I just kept creeping and creeping and creeping, until the next thing I knew, I think I ended up with like a 243 average for an hour and a half, which was much higher than anything I've ever done. But the body's just crazy. I mean, and I think the body's ability to respond versus how our mind translates the body's signal. Is the body really telling us it doesn't want anymore, or is it just giving us a hint that it's going to need more to get going? And instead of, it's like, a guy talking to a girl, you think you're sending the right signals, and she thinks you're like hating on her. Mm-hmm. And your mind takes that. But I think it's so much about where your mindset is and what it wants to hear and what it wants to see, mm-hmm. and what it wants to believe. And if you want to believe that your body is telling you no, well, then you're going to look for every single sign that it's telling you. Because that's what I was doing. The first hour, I was like, dude, everything my body is telling me, because my legs were fried, my mind wasn't totally in it. I was listening to this podcast, just let my mind wander. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm turning this off. I'm putting my music in. I know it's early, but I need to make a decision if I'm going to find a way to make this work, or I'm going to just take and look at these signals that's telling me that I need to just bail and go home. Mm-hmm. And I just said, F it. I mean, I said it out loud. I said, fuck it, I'm going for it. And there were no kids around at the lab at this point, but I was just like, F it, I'm doing it. Did you
scream it?
I did scream it. I was just pissed. I was like, you know what? I was tired of feeling like crap physically, and I was tired of mentally attaching myself to that. And I was like, I can break up this relationship between my mind and my body right now. And I'm going to try and go the different direction. And I did. And then I remember creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. And then I was like, man, I could totally pull off now. And I was like, F it, I'm doing it again. It's crazy. And it's such a relationship between the mind and body.
Yeah. When I was, I was never a car guy, but I remember like some of my buddies were car guys when I was growing up. And they would always say this thing like, we'd be just out driving around and they would just floor it. And we'd just be flying. We'd be like, what the hell? I mean, I was just, sometimes you got to blow out the carbon. That was the line. I don't know if that's an analogy.
Out the carbon.
Yeah, it's like they build these engines to go fast, and if you always go slow with them or moderately, they don't get to experience their full potential, and they don't work as well as they should have. Like some of these cars they build, they're built to go fast. You got to really push them sometimes. Just to. It's sort of like I think they used to describe it as kind of like working out the engine, like kind of like working it out in a sense. It's like it has to be pushed to that full expansion or whatever the heck engines deal with. And I think in some ways maybe that's the thing with the body is like if you're it really forces you to use oxygen and expand your muscles and your veins and to get the blood flowing and stuff like that. I think it's just sort of a forcing of like, hey, let's open this thing up a little bit. And, there's a lot more here. And mm-hmm. It's very difficult sometimes. Like I find it very difficult to go to, when we talk about slow runs or slow rides, I do find that very difficult to do sometimes because I think a lot of times you're concentrating on it.
Yeah.
And you're kind of resisting in a sense, where I think that, you have to do that, but how do you do that in a relaxed manner? You know what I mean? So it's like your body wants to flow. It doesn't want to have to think about holding back on pedal strokes and things like that. And I think a lot of time, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, like the relaxation factor of race, everything to do with racing, swimming, biking, and running, and how when you're at peak performance, like professional, like high, the highest athletes in the world are relaxed when they're doing these incredible things. And how do you get to that state of mind? And we've all probably felt it. It's just a matter of letting go and trusting, and sometimes the body just when it's relaxed, and it sounds like when, like that's one of the things I think about when you can get mad, that kind of can sort of trigger a relaxed state in a way, because then it's sort of like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to let it go. And in that state of mind, you can kind of calm down and just, and it does. It's like you get out there, and if you do that sometimes on the bike, and you just start, and if you blow it out and you kind of creep up into this zone, and you're going faster than you normally would, and it feels good. And you're kind of like, I've been there many times where I've just been super surprised by, man, I feel like I could go another lap. I can go another lap, it's like you just not, and then you just don't want to stop. Once you hit that spot, it's momentum, and we talk, I think about this a lot on the bike course, is like why it's so important to crest a hill and come out of there with, some power and get your momentum going, because you could all of a sudden, if you're say you're a 20-mile-an-hour rider, if you come out of there and all of a sudden you're going 24 off of that hill, that 21-mile-an-hour effort is the same as your 20. You know what I mean? It's like that same kind of effort if you can get the flow in the pedal stroke going. And I think about this like with these pro guys like Starkey. I think that, people always talk about how he's just hammering out there. I think he's just got to a point where he's a really efficient stroke pedal, those guys just kind of flow with that, and all of a sudden, those guys are going 28 miles an hour, and it doesn't feel as hard as we think it feels. Is that fair to say? You think?
No, I mean, it's I think like the same thing as when like a shooter says they just get in the zone. Mm-hmm. Like they don't even think about shooting anymore. Everything is just flowing, and it's in rhythm, and it's perfect. And I think just like with running too, you can go out for a run, and some days it just feels effortless. Mm-hmm. And then I think, as like Des Lynn said, some days it feels effortless and like I'm born to do this, and other days it feels like I'm drudging through hell. Right. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much how it feels. But when you get into that flow state, which is how you want to feel during a race, and like we talk about it all the time, and you can see athletes, especially with like when they encounter wind, like they just look like they're fighting the bike. Mm-hmm. And I know we mentioned this before about watching the broadcast for Kona last year. And listen, like Lionel Sanders is a exceptional athlete, and he won St. George this weekend, monster bike split, incredible run. But and he puts out a ton of power. But sometimes I have to I think it's like when he rides, he looks like he's fighting the bike. And when he runs, he looks like he's fighting the run. And you look at guys like Jan Frodeno and Patrick Lang, when they ride, they just look smooth. Mm. And like every bit of power and effort is going into their pedal stroke. It's not wasted going east to west. They're not, sliding, back and forth. It's just smooth and effortless and straightforward. And the same thing is with their run, and it's also going to be said with swimming. I've talked to a lot of athletes that, when you look at a swimmer like a Michael Phelps or a Katie Ledecky, and they're doing things like controlled and steady, it looks like they're moving slow.
Yeah.
But they're not. they are not even close to moving slow because they're so efficient with their swim stroke. And that's where, and when I have athletes like work on going hard in swimming, which you should do if you're not doing it, I'll often tell them, it's like, listen, a lot of times 90% and really, really solid is far faster than 100% and flailing chaotically.
Oh, I believe that 100%.
But that goes with everything. It goes with running and cycling as well.
Yeah.
It's like, and I tell athletes this too. Like when I say run all out, I would rather it be 90% and controlled, because that extra 10% you may go a smidgen faster, but if your run form turns to crap and you're flailing all over the place, and you're asking for it. Same thing with the bike. We've ridden with athletes that crush it going up these hills. Like they get out of the saddle and they just like fling back and forth and they're crushing the pedals, and then you see them like get to the top and they like sit and they can't do anything, and they just get crushed. And it's so much about rhythm and confidence and finding that good flow state. And if you don't train in that area and flirt with that area in training, then you're never going to know what it feels like to do that or be that when it comes to race day. Because anybody that's ever felt that, I felt it, I think in a race, I felt it only 2 times, and they were both on the run. I felt them at Gulf Coast one year, and then I felt it at Augusta when both of them, coincidentally, were easily my best runs ever off the bike. It was just effortless, and I felt incredible, and I actually felt like a real runner. But it's just one of those things. And but I totally agree that it's with swim, bike, and run, there is that that flow state with the rhythm to where you can just power through, but the effort feels so much less than the power or the pace or the speed that you're actually generating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get that point out. It's sort of like sometimes I feel like, even yesterday, as thrashed as I was riding out there, there were certain points when we were cruising along at a pretty good clip, and it almost felt easy to me. And it's sort of like when you start seeing yourself, like you did yesterday, pushing that kind of, you start believing in it. It's like, man, maybe I am underestimating my watt potential a little bit here. And the next thing you know, you start seeing those higher numbers all the time, and they start seeming easier. And that's the whole pattern of growth. And there's one other, I wanted to kind of, because we do have that race coming up, and I wanted to talk a little bit about like how, maybe if you had any thoughts on how to not obsess with your race, because I know it's very hard to do. I do it, starts kind of controlling your life when, maybe it probably shouldn't, but especially if it's your first time and things like that. And I know a lot of people get like this, it just sort of like sticks in your brain, like you know what I mean? Like every kind of thought reminds you of your race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's, probably not the best place to be, but like, I don't know. Are you getting a lot of that? Or like, oh
God.
Yeah, I would imagine as
a ton. Probably not as much as I'm about to get for the next 2 weeks, because now everybody's going to have more time on their hands, mm-hmm. and they'll start to question things and feel things and see what's going on. And, and I had, I think I actually posted something in our closed Facebook group about it, for the athletes that I coach. And, because I get the question a lot, and if I can find it, I'll just read it, because it's something that I think everybody at some point, I know I've obsessed about it before. I've been there, and just like basically 99% of our topics, you and I have been there and done it, and so that's why we talk about it in hopes we can help other people out and not have to go through the same stress or freak out or uncomfortable week or two that is the lead up to some of these races. And so I think it was, let me see if I can find it real quick. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like I did a decent job with it. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah, no, it was a good one. And it's like,
it was my second of one of my other public service announcements for the week. Here we go.
Calm though.
Yeah, it was calm the F down. Training equals studying. Racing is the test. Speculating, try calculating, guessing, or picking random numbers from your training is futile. Racing is not pass or fail. It's an opportunity to gauge where you are. It's an opportunity to see how far you've come. You have no idea how a race is going to play out. The temps, the conditions, other athletes, or how you're going to feel upon waking up. Stop making predictions on your goal race when life is going perfect, and then strangle to death that same goal by holding on for dear life when life throws you ups and downs, sickness, injury, family issues, work problems, or even depression. Wake up, do your best every damn day, enjoy getting to race and the opportunity it provides, because one day you won't get to race. It will be over. And the last thing you want to do is look back on your triathlon career with that feeling that you never, quote unquote, reached your expectations, that you more than likely pulled out somewhere out of your ass anyway. What does your heart, it's true though. What does your heart tell you? It tells you that you love the sport and what it's doing for you. So when you get to race, throw all that stinking thinking and just let it rip. And then we'll go back to the drawing board and do it again. Because that's what we do. We sign up for a race 10 months previously when life is going. Because listen, most people don't sign up for races when they're well, a very few will, when their life is in like just horrible turmoil, and then base this time goal on their current life status. Everybody throws in a time goal or prediction, or I want to go 11 hours at Chattanooga, full. Where did you even get that number? I don't know. You could be an hour and a half faster or 2 hours slower. You have literally no idea. But we throw these numbers out there, and then at the closer the race gets, we do the calculating, we look at the weather, we look at this, we look at that. When and I was at this conversation with an athlete who did the Pig Marathon on Sunday, and he actually PR'd and went a negative split, which on that course is nuts. But I told him, I said, listen, unfortunately, race day is just like any other day of the year. You have no idea how you're going to feel. Yes, will you be more rested? Sure. Will you be tapered? Sure. Will it be a bigger day? Sure. But that, honestly, most times doesn't mean really jack crap to your body. I mean, I know I've been there before. Other athletes have been there before. I know a jabillion professional athletes that if you follow any of them will basically say that. I was fresh. I was ready. I just woke up today and I just, quote unquote, didn't have it. And because you're going to have athletes who look at Chattanooga and they look at this, quote unquote, fast swim, and they look at this, fair but rolling course and a decent run, and they're like, May in Tennessee, I'm probably going to get cool temps, and then I'm probably going to get a fast swim. But what happens if there's not a lot of rain, the swim isn't as fast, and it's going to be 85 like it might be now? Mm-hmm. You're not going to – nothing's going to change. You're still going to keep your goal and most athletes, and then you're going to go out and you're going to race your best, and the first line across the top of your Facebook post is going to be, well, it wasn't the race that I hoped for, or it wasn't the race that I expected, or it wasn't it wasn't this or that. But if you do your best and that's it. Just do your best and work as hard as you can. If you get to the finish line and you think, I don't think I had anything left in the tank, then good on you. Because a lot of people, even though these events are incredibly hard, a lot of people still hedge it. A lot of people are still afraid to fail. They're afraid to push it to a level to where things might go cross. I told an athlete that it was in a 10K, it wasn't in a full, or a half Ironman. I said, go out so hard and don't be afraid to fail. Those are the things you have to practice, but it's you just have no idea. But it's the fact that you get an opportunity to race is what is so awesome. And you get to race with friends, you get to have family there, and the all these extra like expectations and pressures you put on yourself just suck the living daylights out of what is supposed to be an incredible experience. Yeah. And we do that almost every single race.
Yeah, it's easy to do. I haven't mastered any of what you're talking about necessarily. Some of it comes and goes, but I still, And I guess that's the point a lot of times in this podcast is just to rehash this and get it back in our heads and make it a discussion so that we remember, that we have a better chance of remembering what you're just talking about, because that is, those are the greatest things when you go into that. Like if you have these ridiculous goals and then like this has happened to me many times where I have these goals set and I get to the run and about 3 miles in, I know that goal shot, man, that really makes your race just hell.
Mm-hmm.
The last, if it's a half hour or so, and then or 3 hours if it's a full, it's like, why do we because what happens to me anyway is like you get that goal in your head, and if you don't have it, and it's kind of contradictory in a sense, like you want to try and push it out and see if you can get it, like we were talking earlier, but you still got to be patient, man. Because it's one of those things where I feel like if I go race and I do everything, swim, bike, run, under control in the beginning of that sequence, my odds of enjoying and having a better race are way higher, rather than, it's almost like if I hope to negative split, or if I really try to negative split, then I do a lot of better job, because I will, even if I don't necessarily do it, but it's all about, for me, it's all about waking up and letting your body sort of like get to that place, and then when it's ready, push it to another level. But it's easy to obsess about races, man. I mean, they are just sort of this one day waiting out there that feel like a huge, opportunity and burden, because like. But again, I think like it's just so much in my own head, It's like nobody really gives a shit about it. They do, but like my
No, they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
I mean, they a little, but they don't. Not as much as you want them to, or not as much as you think. All
right, yeah.
It's so much about but it's also so much about the basis behind your reason and what you want to get out of the race.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking for some like justification? Are you looking for some, huge gratifying moment that shows you that you are this or you aren't this or whatever? Because the more of those you put on it, then the weight of these expectations can be suffocating. And no matter what, you're going to be the person who's not happy with their race. Because all these expectations based on, proving yourself right or proving other people wrong, or, you can't do this or you can do this, or justifying the time you use for training or the goal you told everybody you went, like none of that, no, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. They just read it. Like, have you seen people look at Facebook? Do you see how fast they scroll through stuff?
Mm-hmm.
You can't even read it. Nobody really does care that much, except for you, about those little things. But when you finish, if you can be happy with the effort that you gave. It's like you talk about your dog all the time, and I always talk about Hayden. Like, they don't give a shit. When you come back from a run, no matter how great or how terrible it was, Maddie's pretty pumped to see you.
Yeah, she's licking up my legs.
Yeah, no matter what I do, if I go out mine too. If I ever stop by, if when I get back from a ride or a run, Hayden doesn't care. He's just happy. And it's like that's how we should reverse see ourselves when we finish these races. It's like, how is your dog and how is your kid going to see you when you finish? What are they going to care about?
Yeah,
they're going to care that you finished. They're going to care that you tried hard and that you had fun. The other stuff, they could just care less about, and while we use it as like motivation to like get us going, it's like, as a parent, what's the lesson you want to teach your kids? That you went 5:20 at Ironman? No. That's not a teachable moment. It's a teachable moment, or something that you can actually work on with them, is I tried hard, I gave it my best, I worked hard till I get here, and today was a great day, and you know what, tomorrow I'm going to get back to work and try to get better.
Yeah, the lessons.
And
Keep going.
yeah, then
Keep getting
it's
better. Keep working on your shit, because I mean, it's so easy for me to forget that 6 years ago this seemed impossible. And you're right, the whole process and the fact that I actually turned my life around and started focusing on something like this to get my body and mind back in a different place, and actually did a half Ironman, that was a huge deal. Just, but like, to think about, you forget about where we came from. It's easy to forget.
oh, it's like we got too good for our original version of ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's like we're now too cool and too elitist for the version of ourselves that towed the line for the very first time and finished, and no matter what the time was so pumped and grinning ear to ear and chills down our spine or even tears, and we're so proud of ourselves no matter what. We've all of a sudden got way too good and way too elitist and way too experienced for that version of ourselves. But like, that was the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was the best, because you had your biggest expectation and goal was to finish and do your best. Everything else was secondary. But now we do it in reverse. Now we just have this like foregone conclusion that we're for sure going to finish. So we just wipe that away, and now everything else gets bumped up a notch.
Yeah.
When no race is guaranteed. None of it. Ever. But it is. We go back and we pretend like we're too good for ourselves, and we should always keep that, and you see it and you hear it from the best athletes in the world at every sport. They're just out there having fun. Like, they're out there having fun, playing like a kid. They love every minute of it, and they just love doing it. And that's what leads to longevity. That's what leads to a happier career, a happier life, and most oftentimes leads to the best results.
Let me ask you this, with regard to recovery, because we make a lot of analogies and about how people can get obsessed or addicted to this sport or whatever, and you hear this all the time about, whether it be drinking or heroin or whatever the addiction may be, that sort of, when people do it for the first time, it's like the best high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of their lives is spent chasing that high. And I think about like Ironman sometimes in that regard, and I feel like that's why it becomes so frustrating. It can be such a letdown, to so many people, because that search for that, I can't believe I just did that
Mm-hmm.
moment turns into, I can't believe I just did that. Like, on the court, you know what I mean? Like, why did I do that again? Or why did I try to do this? So like, I'm always interested in like, and that's, I guess, the crux of what you're just talking about is like, you just have to enjoy the process. I mean, you have to enjoy the small gains and just the positive overall arching trajectory of everything.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what you hope for.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Is it okay to have like goals along the way? Yes. Because, like, listen, like, the process is worthless if you aren't getting any better, or you don't feel like you're improving any. But it's is it a time-based goal? Is it an effort-based goal? Is it an execution-based goal? What is it exactly? What is your goal created upon, and when did you create it, and what is it based on, and is it even true? And do you even have a shot? But like everybody can go out and choose to race hard and choose to have fun doing it. And you're much better off with racing free, which is another reason why I think it's so great also to occasionally run without a watch, is that it reminds you, because running with a watch, it's basically just an expectation wristband. That's all it is. That's all it is. 90% of the time is an expectation wristband.
And a
where you
series
look.
of panic-inducing moments.
Exactly. You look down and and you're like, oh, I should, like, look at how slow I'm going. This is gonna be the worst run ever. Or look how fast I'm going. I should push it more. Or, I wanted to be faster today, but I wasn't. So it ruins your whole run, and you're only 20 minutes into an hour. And so if you didn't have it on, guess what? You would have just enjoyed it to be enjoying it because you love running. And we always add more and more things like that to our lives. When, I mean, even like going back to the power thing, like about riding, it was like you should ride with power, but not necessarily always ride by power. Because you want to see the power you're putting out, but if your body tells you feel good, then go. If your body tells you to go slower, then go slow. Don't marry yourself to a number. And a lot of it is just like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, is going with the flow, checking things out, and then listening and letting your body lead the way. But if you have so many things in front of it that your body can never get to the forefront of your mind and how it's really feeling, because you have to get this race done and you have to do this and you have to do that, then you're never truly going to have like the mental or physical clarity to perform at your highest level. And that could be, and most oftentimes, is leaps and bounds ahead of what you probably ever thought possible. But the only way to get there is to have fun doing it and to enjoy just getting better, because ultimately that's, unless you get a paycheck from the sport, it's going to be the only thing you're going to be able to walk away from the sport with are the memories and the lessons that you learned. Because honestly, like, we joke about, I can't remember what podcast it was, but you don't want to be the guy when you're 60 who hasn't done an Ironman in 30 years still wearing your jacket. Let me tell you about the one day I did Ironman Wisconsin, and the hills it was uphill the whole 140.6. There was headwinds both ways. The sea was 9% chops, and I still managed to 820. And you're like, wait a minute. Something's not adding up here. But it's just, it's like you want to be able to take away the memories, and they want to be good, and you want to remember how much fun you had and how you left it all out there. And because times aren't going to mean shit, a long way. They're just not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
And but
it's funny to think about that story. Is like, that is like, it's funny because that is how that guy remembered the story. It's sort of like fish stories,
Mm-hmm. This big, yeah.
Yeah, they're exaggerated, but I think that's kind of interesting because, it's we always joke about that kind of thing, but that really is how they want to remember them. And, what's so wrong with that, I guess, It's like, if that's what it felt like to you and that's what it seemed like, that's your memory, go for it. Be happy with that memory, It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I love that line, unless you get a paycheck from the sport, the only thing you can walk away with is your memories. And that's true, man. If that's like, and you want them to be good. And sometimes I think about my goal, like for this race, and what creeps in there often is like, you know what? I just want to finish that race and actually feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that'd be a hell of a goal, really, because that's the whole point of why I do this sport, why we do this sport, or should be, and a lot of it's to, feel stronger, be happier, healthier, whatever, the whole 9 yards. And if you're finishing workouts or races and you are depleted and feel crappy and it was like the worst experience, what's the point?
It should all be good, man.
I would think, you want to be able to. You talk about the Ironman limp and everything like that. It's it's like a nice badge of honor and stuff like that. But like after a while, it's kind of like, why do I keep doing that?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, any other thoughts you got here today, man?
No, that's it, man. That's I've only got so many good thoughts for a day, and I think I just used them all.
Yeah, we just blew out our carbon.
Yes, that's right. I may have peaked too early for the day.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, you've probably already done more than I've. How's that saying go? By 9 o'clock, I just sort of rolled out of bed at 8:30. You probably had more.
I've been up since up since 5:20, and Allie's at home sick today, so I took Hayden to daycare and post up at my mom's house here in town doing the cast before we meet over at the office.
Oh, you're at your mom's right now.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't want to. There's no point in me driving all the way back to Hermitage, so I'm at mom's and doing my work, casting the cast, and getting ready for another full day.
Well, say hi to Mom. I talked to my mother last night. She's still...
Yeah, well, she's at work, but I'll tell her when I talk to her. Yeah.
Yeah. My mother's still a little bit upset about the mass swim start. She's thinking she actually had room. Like, my mom likes to go watch it. I'm not even racing, and she already booked rooms, and she's been contemplating not spending a lot of money, and that's one of her main reasons. But I had to talk her off the ledge, and
she would know. She's experienced.
She loves it.
She's not coming to chat, is she?
No.
Ah, man, that's a bummer.
I know.
She only shows out if you decide to pony up and do a full.
Pretty much, it seems like.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
The only half she's been to is my New Orleans half, and that was just a debacle. And,
yeah, you might.
That was like right after her experience at Ironman Wisconsin, and then she came to New Orleans, and it was just a shit show down there.
Brought her right back down.
Yeah, not only me, but just the environment.
For sure, a little bit of spectating humble pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that race is not the greatest. Yeah, anyway.
It wasn't. I don't know. I heard they changed it a little bit, but it's a tough when the finish line is like 10 miles from the transition, and you got to take buses all over and get back to your bike, and then you got to go back to your car. This is how it was. I think it's different now, but I went back. How did that finish? I finished. I went back to my hotel, and then I got my car, and I drove like 15 miles to go get my bike. It was the worst day.
Yeah, it's I mean, they can soup it up all they want and improve it, but it's kind of like telling me you got a pimped out Honda Accord. Like, I'm just not sure. Congrats, but it's not really doing anything for me. Yeah, well, hey, maybe if depending on how chat goes, maybe your inside in Triathlon Inferno will be lit, and you'll be looking back at that city we call Louisville. Just gonna plan. Just throwing it out there.
Oh, I'll be there.
Oh, no, you'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if there's a shot I'm doing a full this year, it's probably whittled down to Chattanooga or Louisville right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I figured as much.
And then I go in this thing about I've already raced pretty well at Chattanooga, and I've never got Louisville right.
Well, third time's a charm.
Yeah, is it?
That's what they say. Sure, so it wasn't for me, but maybe it'll be for you.
The third time could be the dirt on my coffin up there.
That's it. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please take the time to give us a review on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe. We come out every Mondays and Thursdays. You can always follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want additional info on everything that we do outside of the podcast, you can always go to crushingiron.com and check out what we have to offer in terms of training and coaching packages, swim and triathlon camps, videos, blog, clothing, you name it. It's pretty much on there. We try to be your one-stop shop for all things endurance sports and triathlon. So give it a whirl, and if you have any specific questions for Mike, you can always contact him at crushingiron@gmail.com, or if you have any for me, you can always go to c26coach@gmail.com. And if you have any complaints, you can send them to complaints@crushingiron.com.
Complaints at gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly. Complaints@gmail.com, and we'll never look at it, so we appreciate your time.
Yeah. I think that's about it. Check out the new coaching. We got some new coaching information up there, and membership packages and kind of cool things that we've updated. So check that out, and we'll see. Well, we'll be back before that, but if you're going to Chattanooga, make sure we connect. And we've got 50 or so people from the group going down there. So make some friends, reach out. Enjoy the experience even more.
That's it.
All right, man. I will catch you
good.
in a little bit.
That's good, dude. See ya.
Bye.